Today's lecture will be concerning the Luach HaIvri, the Jewish calendar, months. The Jewish calendar is based upon Chodesh, coming from the Hebrew word Chadash, or something new, or a monthly renewal of the illumination of the lunar surface. A year is comprised of a string of consecutive Chodashim renewals. Now, sometimes the year is made up of 12 Chodashim, and sometimes 13, as we will discuss later on. And if you take a look, there's a graphic over here that shows you the perspective of what the moon looks like at the different times of month. At the very beginning, at the new moon, the moon is placed in between the sun and the earth such that the illuminated side is away from the earth. The side which is presented towards the earth is not illuminated, therefore all we see is dark. And as the moon revolves around the earth, you see a greater amount of the illumination of the moon, on the side which presents itself towards the earth. The same side of the moon is always presented towards the earth, because not only does the moon revolve around the earth, it's also its rotation is synchronized with its revolution, such that we are always looking at the same side, but that side is not always illuminated. Okay, so at full moon, when the earth is in between the sun and the moon, you'll see a 100% illumination of the moon. And from the new moon until the full moon, you'll see a waxing crescent. And from the full moon until the new moon, you'll see a waning crescent. Now, if you desire to see a great animation of the lunar phases, a very educational, interesting animation, go to this link. This simulation is an excellent demonstration of why the Chodashim appear as they do, and you can actually see the increase of the angle as the crescent waxes and then wanes. The birth of the illumination renewal is known as the moled, from the word yalod, to be born. And a full Chodesh is the average time that passes between one moled and its successor, the next moled. The moled is the very instance of new illumination of the lunar surface as perceived from Earth. Our Chachamim sages have calculated the traditional average length of time between one moled to the next as 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 tashtzag chalakim. Chalakim are parts of an hour, on the basis of 1,080 chalakim per hour. And that actually converts in terms of minutes and seconds, 44 minutes and 3.33 seconds. Now, our ancients, our Chachamim, used an hour comprised of 1,080 parts as opposed to our current 3,600 seconds per hour. And their reason is explained by the Gaon of Vilna, is that only by dividing an hour into 1,080 parts allows for the duration of the Chodesh to be expressed without fractions. 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 tashtzag parts. Tashtzag. Tash, Tav, Shin. Tav is 400, Shin is 300, 400, 300, 700. Tzadi is 90, and Gimel is 3. Tashtzag. 793 parts. And if you take a look at Dr. Irv Bromberg's website, which is at this link, you will see his discussion of the using of chalakim versus minutes and seconds as we do today. Also, if you take a look at that site, Dr. Bromberg mentions that the Rambam, in his Mishnah Torah, the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, chapter 6, halacha 2, the Rambam writes that the number 1,080 parts per hour was chosen because it is divisible without remainder by 2, 4, 8, 3, 6, 9, and 5 and 10. Now, this might be true, but it also happens to be true for the smaller number 360, which is 1,080 divided by 3. Now, considering that there are 3,600 seconds per hour in our current convention, so one chelik, one part, is 3.33 seconds, or 3,600 divided by 1,080. The traditional average length of the Chodesh, 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 parts, chalakim, correlates very closely with current astronomical calculations, differing by only 1/2 of 1 second. Obviously, a month can be constructed only of full days. You can't have a half a day belonging to one month and the second half a day belonging to a different month. So after making a month comprised of 29 days, because we said there's 29 full days, 12 hours in Tashsach Halakim, the remainder, 12 hours Tashsach Halakim, is accumulated over the next month with that of the next month to form another day. 12 hours is approximately, is half of a day. So over 2 months, it's a full day. It's a little bit more than a full day. Accordingly, the Jewish calendar is made up of month doubles. 1 month of 29 days, followed by 1 month of 30 days. The length of 12 Chodashim under this method is 354 days, 6 times 29 plus 6 times 30. 354 days is 11 days short of the solar calendar of 365, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The Moled announced in the synagogues are based upon averages. In practical terms, most months are slightly longer or shorter than the average. So now let's take a look at the solar calendar, which originally was the Christian calendar. The solar Christian calendar is based upon the year. That is one complete revolution of the Earth in its orbit around the sun. Now, the length of the year known today is 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. 1 year is comprised of one complete cycle of the 4 seasons. The seasons are formed by the position of the Earth's equatorial plane based upon its tilt, because the Earth's axis is tilted 23.5 degrees to the south, relative to the sun's equatorial plane, otherwise known as its ecliptic plane. And I'm sure you've learned about the ecliptic or you will, from the science lectures. 4 dates in the solar calendar mark the passage from one season to the next. Tekufat Tishrei falls on September 23rd. On that date, the nighttime and daytime have equal lengths. Tekufat Tevet falls on December 22nd. On that date, the shortest daytime and the longest nighttime are experienced. Tekufat Nisan falls on March 21st. On that date, just like Tekufat Tishrei, the nighttime and daytime have equal lengths. So Tekufat Tishrei is known as the autumnal equinox. The Tekufat Tevet is known as the winter solstice. Tekufat Nisan is known as the vernal equinox. And Tekufat Tammuz falls on June 21st, the summer solstice. And on that day, the longest daytime and shortest nighttime are experienced. The Jewish calendar cannot have a set date for a change in season because it's not based upon the Earth's orbit around the sun like the seasons are. The sun is what sets the seasons. So you're not going to find set dates in the lunar calendar every year. It's the same date of the change in season. Now, if you take a look in the graphic, you'll see a very fine public domain graphic, which it indicates to you how the solstice and the equinoxes and as the Earth goes around the sun. The solar Christian calendar divides the length of the year into 12 months due to historical and conventional reasons, because really it's kind of arbitrary. Unlike the lunar month actually has 12 chodashim, 12 renewals of the moon. But the solar year doesn't have such a thing. So you just take the entire time of the year and you divide it by some number. And based upon convention, it was 12. Maybe that followed the lunar year. Maybe there were other reasons. The monthly lunar chodesh of the moon is not astronomically relevant to the solar year. A solar month is but 1/12 of a solar year. So that compares the solar year to the Jewish lunar year. But there's also the Islamic calendar, which is also a moon-based calendar. Let's see how that compares to the Jewish calendar. Now, while the Jewish calendar builds its year upon the revolutions of the moon about the Earth, the solar calendar is built upon the orbit of the Earth around the sun, as we said before. Still, the Jewish calendar corrects itself in order to match seasonal Jewish holidays with their appropriate seasons. Passover is the Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the spring. It must land in the spring. Sukkot is Tekufat HaShanah, it's Chag HaKatzir. It has to fall in the autumn time. The Islamic calendar, as a product of purely lunar movement, contains no correction element to align Islamic festivals to the seasons. As previously mentioned, the lunar year falls 11 days short of the solar year, 365 minus 354. The correction needed to align the Jewish calendar to the seasons requires an occasional 13-month, which makes a pregnant year, a Shana Me'uberet, so to speak, otherwise known as a leap year, to be added to the Jewish year, and that's going to be the month of Adar Bet. Without this correction, the Islamic months, with time, move across all the seasons. They don't have this correction. So any given Islamic month will fall 11 days earlier the next year, and then another 11 in the next year, going from spring to winter to autumn to summer, and then back to spring. I hope you enjoyed this short discussion on months in the Jewish calendar.